It is 7:30, and this is the January 2nd, 2020
Yeah.
meeting of the Planning Board, first meeting of the decade. So we're going to start with the agenda. By the way, Terry Duffy informed me earlier today that he would not be attending this meeting, but all other Planning Board members are present. So we'll start with the public discussion. If there's anybody who has anything to say in public discussion, now's one of the two times to do it. No public discussion. Okay, we'll move to second, approval of minutes. We did not get the minutes for the December 19 meeting. I'm sorry, we did not get the recording
Right.
because the woman at the recording studio, 1623, was out. We never got the recording, so therefore Elaine Hines couldn't do the minutes, and so we don't have that, but David has told me that we will be getting those minutes, getting that recording. Not guaranteed. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but we should be getting them certainly in time, so we'll have them before the next meeting. So for the next meeting, we should have the December 19 minute draft and tonight's minute draft to review and approve.
Did we not have this recorder from those meetings?
We did, I think we had this record, but I didn't find this out till
Okay.
quite a bit later, like Elaine said, where are the minutes or where's the recording? So anyway, it's no big, it's not, critical, but just an explanation. Okay, old business. We have old business, the Enid Wise 5 Brooks Road property. As you recall, at the last meeting, there was concern among the planning board members about approving this as an A&R. And it was, as you remember, a map, and it's up there now if anybody wants to look at it again. It was a site plan map. It actually wasn't a subdivision map, it was a site plan map that was inadvertently filed, according to the attorney, with lines on the map showing that the two non-conforming lots were to be merged effectively. That map got filed, and now the owner, who recognizes that there are two non-conforming lots, is asking this board to approve, approval not required, to stamp a map, same lots, but without the indication that the two lots are merged. In other words, prior to the filing of that, it was a 2015 map, is that right?
2017.
27, so it took that long to figure out. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying, it took a while to figure out that these lots had been merged. Is that what happened?
He got a tax bill.
It was the tax bill?
Yeah, it was the tax
Okay,
bill.
and that indicated it.
Yeah.
So, as everyone saw, I had sent a memorandum, assuming people read their emails, which sometimes they don't, but I had sent a memorandum to our town administrator to be forwarded to the town council outlining the issue. And we got an opinion back from town council, which has been forwarded to everybody. It's dated Tuesday, December 31 at 8:35 a.m. Hers is actually 8:14, and it's a fairly lengthy opinion, and essentially, you can read it, but town council says, in my opinion, planning board endorsement of an A&R plan has no bearing on whether the new lots parcels created by the division are lawful under the zoning bylaws. That is a completely separate question. In some instances, the planning board may require by General Law, Chapter 41, to endorse a particular A&R map even when the plan results in the creation of an illegal lot under zoning. Such an endorsement, however, does not permit the zoning enforcement officer / building inspector to treat that lot as legal under zoning if it is not. I mean, that's her opinion. So it doesn't seem as though the endorsement of this map would adversely
Right.
or would affect the fact that these are two non-conforming lots. They were non-conforming before, they're gonna be non-conforming now, and in fact, the idea that another house or structure could be built on the vacant lot now
Yeah.
should be, if it's non-conforming and it's under the same ownership, one person owns both, they should not be able to do that. So, but apparently your client, that's what they're telling you, is that they just lose sleep at night, the idea that this is one lot and not two.
Exactly.
No other reason. Okay. Okay, so that's what we got. Does anybody have any more discussion on this?
No.
Any questions that anybody wants to raise, or Tom?
Just to express an opinion here.
Okay. Different from council's opinion?
Yes,
Okay.
we can go with council's recommendation. However, if leaving it as one parcel makes it conforming, I think that's a better outcome.
I can't say I disagree with you, but that's not what our council said.
Understood. I just wanted to
Yeah,
express that
I can't say I
opinion.
disagree with you. Yep. Effectively, this is an exercise in, I wouldn't say futility, but it's an exercise that's unnecessary because these lots are in fact deemed merged by the fact they're substandard and they're owned by one, the same person owns both of them. So, why are we doing this? Okay. So, that being said, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the A and R that has been submitted and amended? I did, and I thank council for the applicant for speedy action here. I did take our council's advice, and the language that's in she said, I suggest that any endorsement be followed by the text such as the following, and it just says basically that our endorsement is not a determination of the conformance with zoning regulations. I did have that language. I asked council to place that language on the map. She did do that on short notice, so that's now on the map. Okay, that being said, is there a motion to approve the A and R as revised, submitted by the council for the Enid Wise? All right, I don't hear a motion. Okay, well, if there's no motion to approve, then,
Well, I think that's deserving of a motion to approve.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not,
wait, I'm sorry, Herm?
it's deserving of a motion.
You're going to make a motion to approve?
I said it's deserving of a motion to approve.
Okay, are you moving that it be approved?
I'm always, not always, frequently the one who's so bold. Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
motion made by Herm, seconded by Hank. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Did you vote aye?
I voted aye.
Okay, unanimous aye. So you need to take this with you.
Yes, if I
So maybe
could.
we can do our endorsements now and
Mhm.
Yeah,
move on to
sure.
the next order of business, so she can take it with her, okay?
I just wanted to point out also, if, just to allay any concern you had, if anybody came to the building inspector and asked to build a house on that separate lot, they would be turned down.
Right.
And they would then have to go to the Board of Appeals, and of course, that wouldn't go anywhere either.
Right.
So that, you can be assured of that, unless in the future the zoning changed.
It won't change
And
in
it's
that
not
direction.
gonna change, so,
Yeah, and I guess the thing is.
not in our lifetime.
It's odd that, see, what happens is when something like this is of such concern to your client,
Mm-hmm.
it makes one start to think that there's some other reason they want this that isn't being articulated, because it doesn't make any sense.
Well, he's lived long enough in that.
Or she, I should say,
Well,
because he
both
doesn't
of them
own it.
have lived long enough, and they've seen what has happened in that neighborhood. So they think that maybe in their children's lifetime, something may happen. They saw what happened with the Rockport Lodge and other things, and so they think that maybe in the future, something may change. It's not going to happen in their lifetime. I mean, they're in their 80s.
Yeah,
So. but-
okay.
I mean, to
That's
your
it.
words, with regard to, excuse me?
I'm sorry, who's that speaking?
I am speaking,
sorry.
okay. So to your words with regard to the building inspector and the zoning board of appeals, neither of those are an absolute. So that I will not walk away from the meeting saying that your words are in fact then a reason for my vote, although your words came after the vote. It just doesn't necessarily work that way, so I take exception to your words, but anyway.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
Well, the fact that the building inspector would necessarily turn it down, and that, or that the zoning board of appeals would not approve the building of a structure on either of those pieces of property, which are under the size required in that zoning district, because there is a tendency to provide variances and special permits which allow such construction. So, anyway, enough said.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, here's the regular, this is the Mylar version.
That's gotta be my last,
Special pen. Herm, you want to do the Mylar? You guys can,
Forge Terry's name.
yeah, well, we got enough people.
We don't need his name.
It's expendable.
We only need 3.
How many copies do we,
4 copies.
what does she get?
Outside. Well, she doesn't give anything.
Has to
right
get
now.
stamped.
I think that they have to go through Mary's process
Okay.
first.
But she,
We've never given them out at this particular meeting.
Okay. And who hasn't signed?
I haven't signed,
Yeah.
number 3 on that one, so. this is the-
We got one more here.
Oh,
That needs to be,
and this one?
you got that.
Yeah, the,
I think she gave each thing one.
Yeah, I get mine
we-
because I have to record this.
that's true, but it always went back to the main office and then it was given to you the next day. That was my understanding, but that's, if you're approving of it taking away tonight, then that's
Yeah, I
fine.
think you can take that. We'll
Yeah.
sign.
The others go to other places.
You've got
Yeah,
it stamped.
usually they'll go to
Right.
the,
We just didn't hand them out that evening. Because they always signed them late, that was after they.
Right, that's
signed
right.
When
Are we all signed?
everyone had left.
Should be 4, and then the Mylar is 5.
More cookies?
That'd be nice, thank you.
There might be one more. Yeah, I don't know if we have any surplus the rest. Let's see if there's one.
What do you need?
Rubber band.
Oh,
Yeah, but we need it for these. We got these, we have to put
A couple paper clips.
Here's one.
Put 2 paper clips on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Put a paper clip on one end, one on the other end.
You need another?
Oh, he's got a band. Very good.
Oh, you got a band.
Oh,
Where'd you find that?
Okay.
Denise.
You know Harold Beaton,
No.
Yes, I know
I
him.
know.
Right,
the father,
yes.
was my husband's first cousin.
Oh, I see, yeah, right. I see,
My
yes,
husband was a little bit younger than Harold.
right. Yeah. No, Harold's been an important figure in town.
The father or
Yes,
son?
the father.
Oh, the father.
Let's see what she said.
Okay, well, thank you
After,
so
wait a
much.
second,
Okay.
let me, oh,
Anything else?
yeah, I'm reading the note from our secretary. After members have signed all copies, do not give any copies to client, return plans to Blackback. Please ask client to come to office Friday morning at 11 a.m. and I will give her process model. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What she need, what needs she have?
Mary,
Come back.
I'm not sure what the process is, but Mary collects all four, all of them.
Yeah, I actually-
We sign them, Mary processes them, then they're available on Friday morning, so.
You know what I mean? Like, this isn't,
Yeah, I'll see if I can get Enid to cover that.
and both copies for that.
I'll see if I can
Okay.
get Enid.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Good, done.
All right, next item. Okay, next item. Let me just tell you where we are with this. First of all, Tom had kind of a rough draft of, well, you can say what it was, I don't have to. You were you were working on something that could be in the
Yes.
future, another definition of
Yes.
the area, but it's not really ready at this point.
What I did is to follow up on our,
Oh, by the way, we're just on the next item, B, draft setback amendments to zoning bylaws, just so everyone knows that. Okay, go ahead.
to follow up on our previous meeting item where I suggested that volume might be a more appropriate measure of what's visible. I came up with a definition of what I called gross visible volume, and I drafted something for that. It's not clear how one would actually determine that from the plans. I suggested one possible way, but it would be good to get with the building inspector and maybe an architect to get a better feel for how it would be implemented. But it is not ready for this Springtown meeting, I don't think.
Okay. So what we have are two things. The gross floor area definition, which would change, and then the other change would be the page 18, it would be the entire section 11, but the two items are the same. In other words, I used what the consensus was, let's just take what's there and change some language, which is on the second page, 11C2I and 11C2II. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. The other changes, Terry had asked for a definition of aggregated gross floor area. So if you look at it under 11, there's A and there's B, and that's aggregated gross floor area. So, you know, we can talk about it more tonight, but here's the time frame. we need to, tonight, if this is gonna go forward to a public hearing, we need to vote on that tonight and schedule a public hearing for February 6th. That's the soonest we can do that. I've been in touch with Kirk Baker, who it will draft the public notices. And, you know, there'll be another opportunity, if anybody wants to tweak any of these, to do that, you know, after the public hearing. But in the meantime, that's something we need to do today. If we're gonna get this on the Springtown meeting warrant, we need to vote today to hold a public hearing on this, and we need to move forward, because we're gonna run out of time otherwise. So I think I tried to address the discussion last time with gross floor area and side setbacks, and I think it's clear as to what is intended. So, unless there's any further discussion on this,
I do have a question.
okay.
I'm sure
Well, let
it's,
me just finish.
oh,
What I
sorry.
was gonna say, unless there's further discussion, and there is obviously, we would then, someone could make a motion to have it scheduled for a public hearing, let's say at 7 p.m. on February 6th. So, that's all I had to say.
My question is about buildings with less than 4,000 square feet. Where is the setback covered for those?
That already exists.
That's the
It's
current zoning.
existing.
So this is a separate section that amends that or further defines that?
It further defines it for those over 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
But for under 4,000, it exists, it stays as it exists.
I mean, if you're under 4,000 square feet, it's already in the zoning. It says, 20-foot side yard setback.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 10-foot side yard setbacks. If you're over, this is where you get to the, these
Right.
bigger setbacks.
Okay, so for the other ones that have smaller than 4,000, that doesn't need a definition because you only invoke it here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the building inspector's okay with this, as far as you know?
Oh, I don't know, but he'll be seeing it.
He isn't gonna be happy with it.
He might not be happy, but
I mean, that's,
he obviously has a different view, so.
That why we're-
When we get done with it, we'll have to make sure that he, unhappy or not, that he follows this.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, look, we're going to a public hearing. He's gonna have a copy of it. He can show up at the public hearing and say whatever he wants to say, as can anybody else. And, that's the whole idea of a public hearing. It's not for us to talk, it's for us to hear what they have to say. And he can say his piece, and maybe we'll agree with some things, maybe we won't. I don't know. But in any event. So, that being said, I will refer this, as Mitch has suggested, because of the tight time frame, refer this to town council for her review and before the public hearing, but then we would move forward with the public hearing on the 6th of February if someone wants to make that motion.
I'd make the motion.
Okay. Hank makes a motion to have a public hearing at 7 p.m. on February
February
6th, 2020, on amendments to both the gross floor area
Yeah.
definition and the amendment to section 11 in the
Right.
bylaws.
Are those separate hearings or is that all one
I'm
hearing?
going to put it all in one hearing.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Right.
Okay, so 7 p.m., February 6th will be our hearing date.
Good.
All right. Next item is any new business? There is no new business. Any member items? I have a couple of things, but if anybody else has something, please share it. No?
I have a couple things.
Okay, go for it.
In the past, we've talked about residential lighting enforcement, and I wonder if we could follow up with the building inspector to at least get an inventory of those building permits that have been issued, which should have triggered the new residential building bylaw, lighting bylaw. And then we can do our site visits or personal inspections or whatever to determine whether it has been enforced. I'd like an inventory.
So
Okay,
how would you go about that? How do you
Yeah,
think we
that's
should
what I
go
was-
about it? Yeah.
Yeah, what would, how would that happen?
I would say the chair should request of the building inspector a list of all building permits which should have triggered the residential lighting bylaw. That would be since it went into effect and whatever degree of complexity of the building permit requires it.
Well,
Certainly,
what's the trigger?
Well, a complete new construction would, and there have been several examples of that, I think.
Right.
But I think even major renovations,
Any reservations where they change lighting in any way has to conform.
I think it's in the bylaw as
It's
to
in the bylaw.
what triggers
Yeah.
it. So,
So you're thinking that, let's just think this through. So I go to him, maybe informally first, and say,
Yeah.
okay, the planning board is interested in, looking at, and a list of those. How long ago was that bylaw adopted?
About 2 years.
2 years?
didn't go into effect right away, did it?
No,
No.
no, it just has to be,
6 or 9 months or something
Right.
like that.
So this would be all new construction, either completely new buildings, residential buildings, or modifications that would have triggered the compliance with the lighting bylaw.
Yeah.
And in theory, can find this out.
He's got all the building permits.
He's got the permits and he can find it out, and he can then share that information with us.
Give us a list and we'll see how they look now.
Okay.
Go out after dark and see what we see.
Now,
it was adopted 9/11/17.
9/11/17? Oh, not that long ago.
So 6 or 9 months after that would be, what, about a year and a half worth of,
I mean, why do we need him to do this, comply? Why can't someone like yourself just
Spot check.
go in there and look it up? Can't you do that?
going where?
Go to his office and look up the building permits.
You can get a list of all of the building permits and all of the applications that have been filled out, and you then can determine, what
See,
was
yeah,
done.
We could do it the way you're talking about. Or you and I, for instance, could split the list up and go look at the houses.
I mean, here's my thought, Tom. Which way do you think would get a result faster? You and Hank going there and doing it yourselves, or us sending a love letter to our building inspector saying, by the way, go and tell us which one of these
How are we doing
permits
with it?
require this, and what do you think the response may not be forthcoming? He's got a lot to do, so we might not get a response for quite some time.
Well, I was hoping
And then
that
it becomes an issue about is he responding or not?
he does have some administrative assistance, and I thought that would
Well,
enable
yeah,
it.
but what about the other idea? Is there any, I mean, if Hank, you're very interested in this.
Well, we all should be.
Yeah, well, I know, but I know you've been especially interested in it. And
Tom
you're
has
interested
too.
in it, so why don't you guys do it?
So let's say that we did it and we found out that a certain percentage of them don't meet the requirements. What do we do with that information?
Then we've got an issue to talk about. But without that information, I have no idea what degree of compliance there is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my other thought about asking the building inspector's office to do it was that it brings it to their attention and makes them focus on what the definition is and which ones
Right.
should be included, rather than the judgment of Hank and I.
Well,
Me.
on the other hand, if you do it, you're probably gonna be pretty careful of what you're looking at. And you're gonna have the list done, and, you're gonna do, I mean, this is something that any citizen or resident of Rockport or anybody could do. it's not a planning board thing necessarily, but you happen to be on the planning board. We happen to be interested in this issue. So my sense of this is that if you want to get a result, and if you want to get one that you're comfortable with, that it's best for you two to do it. I mean, I can ask the building inspector to do it, but I'll be happy to do
I
it.
think we ought to, if we were the Conservation Committee, they say they have power. So once in a while, someone goes around, someone sees something that he or she doesn't think is right. I know for a fact, he'll stop and say, you're doing something wrong on this property, and you need to correct it. And they do that because they have the power. So we might be hesitant to do that because we don't know what's going to happen next. But I would think that we could take maybe 2 or 3 spot checks, we'll say, up, and see if they are in compliance. And if they are, maybe we'll do a few more, and then say, okay, seems to be doing okay, no issues. If we start finding some problems, then we should then we need to regroup and say, how do we want to deal with this?
I wouldn't think there's going to be a whole, in the 2 years, just over 2 years that this has been effective, you're not going to have a lot of building permits that fit in the category that you're talking about in the little old town of Rockport. How many are going to have, how many new buildings have been constructed? Or,
I don't know.
5 or 6 a year.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not a lot.
And how much reconstruction? Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then, how much reconstruction affects the exterior lighting, that's,
a lot, actually.
Most people-
that's
A lot,
probably
a
gonna
lot.
be, that's probably gonna be the most
Yeah,
difficult thing to determine, because the new building, it's easy.
I
But-
think we ought to do it, and, because he may or may not have the answers. We could tell him, hey, we're gonna go and we're gonna, for our own benefit, look at a few of these permits and see how the new lighting looks,
Well, there's no harm in going to him and saying, listen, we're here, this is what we wanna do, help us find these buildings.
I was gonna say, we could go to him and say, we'd like to have a list, would you like to do it, or would you like us to do it?
Right,
And then
Well,
he's got a
You could do
choice.
that, or maybe you could help us do our list.
Okay.
We wanna do,
right.
we wanna do a list, where would we look to
Yeah.
get this? And he would be cooperative, I
Okay.
think, though, but I
He's
think.
going to ask, why do you want this list?
I'll tell him.
Essentially,
can
what
tell
you're
him.
saying is, we're looking for non-compliance.
Yeah.
And
Well, it may not be his fault that someone isn't following
he has no
the
interest.
bylaw.
He has
And
no particular
it's not
interest.
picking on that position. What towns don't have is a follow-up system on anything. I think, as I mentioned before, I got one of my friends used to be a town attorney in Beverly, and he said, I tried to get these guys, after I retired, to hire me back to do just what we're talking about on anything. The guy's supposed to have 13 cars on the used car lot, and he's got 45,
Yeah.
And everything's just fine, because no one follows up, or there's not enough follow-up, or whatever.
Oh, that is always an issue, and
That's right. In
I
private
would-
industry, if you follow up, you get what you
Right.
want. If you don't follow up, you get whatever.
right. So why don't you two guys get together, figure out an approach, go see the building inspector, and tell him what you're doing.
Okay. You okay, Hank?
Yeah,
All right,
that's
That's good to me. Anything else?
I had a second item.
Okay.
The Cape Hedge Inn, where inn is in quotes, is in the newspapers about an
Right.
appeal. And the whole case seems to hinge on the definition of inn
right.
in our bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should we revisit that definition and make it what it really should be? Perhaps in consultation with the traditional inn operators?
Why don't we wait until that goes through the courts?
It's been.
Find out what the courts say,
Yeah.
then we can make adjustments
yeah.
afterwards. To try to make an adjustment now, I don't think it isn't going to play on the case that's in the courts right now. And to better understand how the courts feel about an inn, I think we better wait until they make a judgment.
Yeah, well, my understand, I agree with you, Herm. My understanding is that the lower court, the trial level court, ruled against the opponents of the Cape Hedge Inn.
Right.
And now it's on an appeal level, so it's going to the appellate court. So,
No, the lower court favored the operator of the inn.
no,
Yes.
ruled against the people who brought the
Oh,
lawsuit.
yes,
Right. So now they have appealed
yes.
to a higher court and asked that, the lower court be reversed. Now, in just my experience, that generally, the odds are against them, let's say that. The odds are against them. Most cases do not get reversed. But I think Herm's right, because if we'll get a decision from the appellate court, and that court will expound on just what you're talking about the definitions, and I think then we'll have a pretty precise basis for amending it,
Okay. But even before we hear that, I think we should understand that we should take some responsibility for a poor definition in our zoning bylaw.
There's an interpretation question here, too.
If it can be interpreted poorly, then
Well, listen,
It's
why
poorly
don't
written.
you,
Yes.
if you want to bring it up next meeting, come in with a copy of the.
I'm happy to wait for the outcome, but I think we should
Be
go
think-
into this with the attitude that we probably need to change it if it has caused a lawsuit.
Yeah.
I don't think the lawsuit will forever clarify bad
No,
language.
the lawsuit may say something as uneventful as, well, we're deferring to the decision of the zoning
Yes.
board of appeals,
Yeah.
which is often what they say.
Or the
Can't
building,
say they-
or the building
Can't say they
inspector.
were irrational, because there's a lot of deference given to a zoning board of appeals.
I think the difference in this case was to the building inspector.
Yeah.
Well, they deferred to him, and then,
Right.
which maybe they shouldn't have, but.
So I don't wanna leave it
but
at that.
Courts will defer to a local
Yes.
zoning board ruling on its own zoning. That, they will do
Yeah.
that. So, anyway,
Okay.
okay.
That's my item.
All right, my two items, I just have,
But before you go, I'll finish up on the line. You and I, we probably ought to get together and work on non-residential lane.
Yes. Start with commercial or,
Yeah, you and I need to scheme and
yes,
see what we're talking about.
um,
I'm ready to do it.
good.
good.
Maybe MAPC can help.
Gull Cove Lane, is that what it's called? The one down on the water, we discussed that last time.
Yes.
I did speak with the building inspector about it afterward. We looked at the access to that lot, and he said, yeah, I'm probably gonna send this to you, meaning the planning board, because of the access issue. But apparently, there is also another issue that's in front of the Conservation Commission now about the buildability, or the ability to build on this lot where it is, where the applicant wants to build now. That may or may not get approved. And they have a meeting, I know, January 8th, but doesn't sound like they're going to be doing anything at that meeting, so.
I was at the Conservation Commission meeting where they talked about that, and
Yeah.
I believe they said they were going to hire external experts,
That makes
which
sense.
means they may kick it off on some tangential issue that's not, our
It's going to
concern.
be a while, I think, before anything happens, but we wouldn't be getting it if it comes here, we wouldn't be getting it till after the Conservation Commission
yeah.
deals with it anyway, so.
Well, that's another thing of the nature of our zoning bylaw that may not be specific enough about building in floodplains.
Yeah, but that's not is that a zoning bylaw or a
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it applies here, I'm not sure.
environmental bylaw?
Well, it could be both,
Yeah.
because we have something about flood zone building and whether.
How do you distinguish between that particular area and Bearskin Neck?
Yeah,
You can't.
good question.
Well, anyway, that's, the question was, where is the application and what's going to happen with it? And that's what I found out, so.
Okay.
Okay, any other member items? No other member items, no bills to be approved. Public discussion, our second round of public discussion is available.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. The sky may fall, for once I agree with Herman Lilia about the two lots. Obviously, in terms on Brooks Road,
Oh, okay.
obviously in terms of common sense and fair play, a mistake was made, and you've helped them to put it right. Whether it would stand up, if somebody came looking or objected to what you've done, I very much doubt. But humanly, you've done the right thing. Town council's opinion about creating lots that are not legal, they're the authority, and you have to accept it, whether or not it makes any sense, whether or not it's good for the town, fair, reasonable, anything else. But I think back, having heard that you can create illegal lots with, which then invite people to go to the Board of Appeals and, sing their sob stories. That was what was done on Upper Pigeon Hill Street, which also came before you, where somebody succeeded in creating non-conforming lots, pork chop lots. Afterwards, there was only one of them. To begin with, there were two, and thereby, got access to a sewer on Pigeon Hill Street, which they were not properly, entitled to. But there are the lots, and they're entitled. And at the time, I asked you to take an interest in it because it's one of those cases which come forward again and again where different boards have authority to rule on different issues and things fall through the middle. The authorities don't mesh, don't cover the field, and people get away with things that were not intended to happen. So I'd remind you of that. Good Lord. Gull Cove Lane, Tom Mika spoke of the coastal floodplain regulations. I've hounded the planning board, to go into those, for years now. The way it's written, that set of regulations, the whole section in the zoning, it's written in such a way that it is not operative. It's left to the determination first of the Board of Appeals, which is not a fair or reasonable proposal. Means people who own property have to jump through hoops and pay the fees when it should be possible to define, what is acceptable and what is not. Maybe we want to make it more stringent, maybe we want to loosen it up, but the whole thing needs to be rewritten, not just jiggered with, rewritten start to finish. And when Sam Cleaves was foisting his coastal resilience study on the town, as yet uncompleted, I needled and nagged the selectmen at some length and got one concession out of them, that they would get out of him, Cleaves, and they did, 3 sample coastal floodplain zoning bylaws, which he thought were model ones, and 3 sample stormwater bylaws that he thought were model ones. I've not actually seen these things, but was told they got them. So presumably they lurk in the selectman's office, and that would be a place to start.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comment? Z? What was the name of that individual, Toby? What was his name? Sam?
Sam Cleaves did the study.
Okay.
Mitch knows the formal name of it.
Thank you.
It hasn't yet been accepted because in order to be accepted, they have to do a public hearing, which they have not done.
Okay, Z?
Yeah, Z Seppel on 92 Granite Street. I got a question, I think. I have 3 minutes allotted to me to make a public comment. And if, for instance, Toby wanted to go on for another 3 minutes, and I decided that I didn't need to comment, can I yield some time to let him continue on my 3 minutes?
I don't believe that's in the rules.
It isn't.
You're right. So
So-
there's your answer.
Sorry?
So there's your answer.
Yeah, it's not in the rules.
Not in the
That's
rules, and
answer.
therefore yielding is not something that one public person cannot yield their time to another to give the first one.
That
6
is in
minutes.
the rules now, right?
No, it isn't in the rules.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, public comment period's over. Motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Second, moved by Tom, seconded by Hank. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:17.